This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Prism Specialties. Prism Specialties proudly provides a robust range of specialty restoration services to help those affected by a disaster and other unforeseen damages. Whether it's residential or commercial, Prism Specialties delivers effective recovery solutions to help contractors, adjusters, and the insured. Prism offers expertise in restoring electronics, art, documents, textiles. This includes kitchen appliances, computers, works on paper, sculptures, leather goods, shoes, industrial machinery, and more. What many companies don't specialize in or may consider a total loss, Prism Specialties can restore. So when life needs an expert, call Prism Specialties at 888-291-5905 or visit prismspecialties.com to learn more. Hey restorers, welcome to this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. We are recording this at the beginning of hurricane season, which seems like it's going to be a big one. And I've been talking to friends and restorers all along the East Coast, and I think everything's pretty busy right now. So, and also busy in Texas. And the person that we're talking to today is from Texas, the Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, that whole region, a lot of that area that's been affected by Beryl and probably more storms to come. So I am joined by Brandon Kinney. He is the Director of Operations for Prism Specialties of Greater Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Central Texas, and Art of Colorado. So lots of stuff happening there. And today we're going to talk about contents, especially what it looks like during CAT season, and the idea of working with adjusters and getting claims paid, and how offering content services during CAT events can be kind of a different animal, and how to tackle that effectively, especially if you have a good partner potentially. So Brandon, thank you very much for joining me. I am going to toss it over to you and have you introduce yourself a little bit and share your background.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, for having me on. It's an honor. I'm really excited. So we'll start talking about Prism Specialties. What we do is specialty contents restoration. So what that means is art, electronics, both commercial and residential, textiles, and documents. So that's what we do. How I got into this space is a little bit different than most. I did come from, my first job out of college was actually as a private investigator. So I did work claims, but kind of in a different avenue than restoration itself. And then my father and I started this business about 10 years ago now in Houston. And then, slowly trickled into the DFW market and the Central Texas market. And, we service the entire state out of our 3 offices in Austin, Fort Worth, and Houston.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I got into it. Came from a background in claims, but a different way than restoration. So it was a good introduction.
Perfect. Okay, so for people who are a little unfamiliar with Prism, talk a little bit about how Prism works. Like, are you partnering with other restoration companies to do the contents? Are you coming in completely on your own independently to do the contents on a claim? Is it both? What does that look like? How is Prism involved on a claim?
So both, and really, so we get work, obviously from contractors, the mitigation guys who come in and see, hey, there's a really high-end refrigerator here that I don't want to touch, or, there's audio video system that I'm not familiar with, or, for the textiles, if they don't offer that service, they'll bring us in for it. So not only do we get referrals from contractors, but we work a lot directly with adjusters as well. So we'll get direct work from adjusters. We get it grassroots marketing, call in direct from contractors. So anything and everything, we'll take a job.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so talk about, I guess, before we jump into talking about what it's like doing CAT work, what has stuff been like for you recently or in the last couple of years? Have you had a lot more CAT claims? How involved are you when maybe a hurricane comes through or big storms or freezes? There's been a lot going on in Texas. You're a very active area. So what does that look like?
Covering Texas, we have our 3 different locations, which is nice because when any one of the locations needs help, we can kind of funnel staff and equipment and clients to that specific location. So when a hurricane will come in, we'll send some guys from DFW during the big freeze that affected, Dallas more so than Houston. Houston was still affected, but really Dallas took a big hit. We had a bunch of guys come up to help us out during that. So, we do service the whole state and we're really flexible and we have a big team at this point and we can really handle any claim size. As far as CAT goes, it's been a fairly calm year so far as major events. The hurricane brought us some work, but nothing like, Harvey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've had and just the day-to-day business is good. We keep ourselves busy even outside of CAT, but we do travel for, large commercial work. We'll go wherever if it's cost effective, right? If someone calls us in, Midland, Odessa, we're happy to go out there, El Paso even. So we cover the entire state from my group, but Prism has a nationwide presence. So there's other franchise owners throughout the nation. So really we can cover just about the entire nation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's talk about, I guess, cat work then and what it looks like from the cat angle, especially during Harvey. And if Colorado State's predictions hold true, there could be another, I think, 22 named storms this year. So we are just beginning, who knows. So what does it look like at the start of a job when contents are involved? And talk about like what that initial conversation looks like between probably both like the property owner and the adjuster to get it rolling and making sure that you know the amount of coverage as things get rolling.
Absolutely. So with us, communication is, top priority. At the beginning of a claim, we're really trying to establish, trust and alignment on what the expectations and maybe limitations are. We ask both the adjuster and the insured, what are your expectations here? On the adjuster side, what do we need to get approval, right? Do you need approval? Do you want us to get started? Is this like very high priority? You just want us to get after it's sprinting, or do we need to get you some sort of documentation or estimate before we roll? Okay. You mentioned it. Are there any policy limits or any exclusions we need to be aware of? Both, I think it's important, especially on large commercial and CAT, is having the adjuster and the insured together in a conversation with us, again, to align expectations.
Yeah.
So the adjuster and us know what the insured's highest priorities are, right? Like, hey, for example, like if we were to do like a factory, right? Like, hey, I need to get this line back up and running like immediately. So this one's high priority, but maybe my computer's on the other side of the facility can be like a phase B. So really just having that open communication and aligning expectations from the beginning is super, super important. Because that can also eliminate any potential issues on the tail end with policy limits, right? Which no one ever wants to run into. We don't want to, do work that's not covered, and we don't want to have to, chase down the insured for money that the carrier isn't going to pay or can't because of policy limits. So really aligning all that at the beginning to make sure there's no unexpecteds at the tail end is very, very important. Like I said, prioritizing whatever's mission critical for the client, like what do you need to get back up and running ASAP? Is it your servers? Is it your line? Whatever that is, we prioritize. And they can kind of, create a scope from there on, hey, we're going to start here, phase A, phase B, phase C, based on their priority and what they need to get back up and running. Because really our goal is to minimize a business's downtime, right? Because if they're not operational, they're not making money. So our whole goal is to make that process as expeditious as humanly possible. And if an adjuster hasn't worked for us before, we give them kind of an overview of our services. Maybe they brought us in for the electronics, but also there's textile damage that they need assistance on. So we'll align there. Also kind of just like a what to expect conversation. Like this is our process from start to finish so that you know how we operate, what to expect, and to make sure that this goes seamlessly. Again, no surprises, no hiccups.
Perfect. What kind of documentation, you touched on this a little bit, what kind of documentation are adjusters and carriers looking for when it comes to contents? Especially, I feel, documentation is a whole different animal when there's contents and, yeah. So go ahead.
For sure, for sure. Just being as thorough as humanly possible in all aspects of documenting a claim, right? A best practice company is going to provide a thorough itemized inventory. And what does that include? For electronics, that's going to be manufacturer, model, serial number, a diagnostics report. So whenever we pick up electronics, it's not just a visual assessment. Everything we do is thoroughly diagnosed and tested to make sure that there's not going to be, any issues even after restoration. Because sometimes, we can restore something and then there's some issues. I mean, it's electronics and water and fire, something can go wrong. So we try to eliminate all potential, issues that can happen by a thorough diagnostic process And then, with that comes the documentation, the model number, serial number, inventory. And once that's produced, if we do have anything that fails diagnostics, we have a separate total loss report. So that'll include all the information they need to pay out the claim for anything that's damaged and hopefully get them, again, the goal to get them back up and running. Sometimes that means they need to buy new equipment. So if they do need to buy new equipment, we'll provide, that thorough itemized inventory of listing the details of why it failed, why we recommend replacement, what it was, age, serial number, model, and then if adjusters want it, the price to replace that. We can source pricing and help them come up with a price to pay out the claim. Sometimes adjusters like to do it themselves, sometimes they request it of us, so it's really dependent on the situation. The model number, serial number stuff is really catered towards electronics. When it comes to textiles, art, and documents, it's really a assessment report of the current state of the item, any like potential pre-existing issues, and then just an assessment report of how the item is and its current state. And also, everyone in the restoration business knows this. Your documentation is so important, but on top of that, pictures of everything, always. More pictures than you think you need. So for me, documentation, the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words is so true. Because you can have all this stuff written out in your documents, but if you don't have pictures to support it, it's a bit of a moot point. So very, very high level of pictures, all angles of everything as in detail with good lighting as possible.
Okay, well, so we can't have a conversation like this without talking about kind of pushback or misconceptions that happen between adjusters and contractors, right? There's always, not always, but sometimes that little bit of like, that's not covered, but you think it's, yeah, there's pushback. So what are some of your tips for restorers who are maybe doing contents or looking to offer contents, but they're worried about the pushback that they might get from adjusters? How do you handle pushback when you get it?
Yeah, and I think circling back to our previous point is, when you communicate on the front end, it's harder to get pushback on the back end, right? But yeah, as far as misconceptions go, I think there is like maybe a thought in the restoration business that it can be hostile toward between contractors and adjusters. And yeah, maybe there are some cantankerous adjusters out there, but there's also cantankerous contractors out there too.
100%.
So, um, the majority of the claims that we process are seamless. So, the communication's good. Everything is executed well from start to finish. So just again, with that open communication and making them feel comfortable with you and letting them know, we are the subject matter experts, and to trust us. And, if we're aligned there, then things go very, very smoothly.
Talk about then as well, what it looks like, the logistics of, especially if you're in a CAT and maybe you're going through a neighborhood and you get multiple homes, or you're going through a business district and you have multiple maybe warehouses or factories or whatever that may be. How do you handle the logistics of the content side? I know it's a challenge just on the structural side, but contents is a whole different animal if you're talking about CAT volumes of contents. So what does that look like?
So yeah, in any CAT scenario, you're getting a surge of claims like you probably wouldn't have ever seen in your day-to-day business. So big things when we know a hurricane's coming or, a freeze or something along those lines, we always have a stockpile of supplies, not just if we see something coming. Yeah, maybe we'll be a little proactive and order some more, but just generally speaking, we always have a stockpile of, supplies to get jobs done. Where we have, what becomes difficult, both from a business owner perspective and just operationally, logistically, is warehouse space. Because with contents, you're pulling stuff out of the homes, out of the commercial buildings, and that can create, clutter in your space if you're not prepared for it. So, during Harvey and also the freeze, we had to lease more space just because our current space kind of wasn't conducive to the amount of volume that we had coming in. So we worked out some deals with some local warehouses of doing like, a month-to-month thing because we knew we wouldn't need it in perpetuity, right? But we did need it in the short term. So we would lease like, a year or 2 years, month to month, until we knew that a lot of this stuff was going to get delivered and then, closed out from there. So on top of that, this is every business is a people business, right? So building up your team and trusting them and giving them the training before a CAT event happens is really, really important. You'll meet a lot of leaders whenever a CAT event happens because maybe a guy who was just a technician for you, well, hey, buddy, you're going to step up and be a supervisor now, because we got this much claims coming in. You've been working with us for 2 years, like you're ready. So, just building up your people, trusting your people, and knowing that they're going to be able to execute when this stuff comes in, and setting them up for success, building them up, and giving them that trust to succeed is really important as well.
Does your team, especially on the technician side, do they know how to do everything, or do they become sometimes specialists in certain areas? Like maybe they're a specialist in electronics or luxury goods versus doing the hard contents or textiles that come out of a
That's
facility.
that's a great question. Yeah, we have different groups for each of our service offerings, right?
Okay.
So our electronics guys are only doing electronics. Our textiles guys are only doing textiles because again, we want to be subject matter experts.
Yeah.
We don't, yeah, sometimes we'll help out, we'll cross over on packouts, but the guys working on your electronics, they're electronics technicians. The people working on your textiles, they know laundry, they know care for textiles. So same thing with documents, same thing with art. Art is very specialty. You have to have artists who really know, how to properly restore this stuff and have that care and eye for it. So yeah, we have different departments and they execute depending on the service offering.
Do you find that, this is more of like, I'm personally curious, is the electronic side hard to keep up on with techniques and like different technology? The other areas, luxury goods, leather, those kind of things, like, okay, there's probably some continuation of knowing how to do that, but electronics keep evolving and are different. And, it's like cars are way more intricate to get into now than, you could access everything 20 years.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, how do you keep up with the electronic side? Does it keep advancing? Does it keep getting harder in some ways? Does it require ongoing training to keep up on it?
It does. It does. And our training is pretty applicable to most range of electronics. The way you clean a circuit board in a TV is the same way you clean a circuit board in a large printing press, right? So where it gets kind of, yeah, we have specialty guys. Some of our guys are really good at computers. Some of our guys are really good at the commercial side. So, and then when we have some scope, there's always stuff, we did a machine shop recently, and there's like a $4 million laser cutter, right? There's
Oh,
no amount of training that we can give someone beforehand. They know how to work their stuff. So often on these commercial claims, we're working in conjunction with the insured and with their specialists, like potentially the OEM, which is the original equipment manufacturer as well, to make sure that they know what we're doing. The startup, the diagnostics are all done because sometimes there's proprietary software that we can't tap into that they have access to, right? So we work really closely with conjunction with a lot of other technology companies to help us be successful on each and every claim. But yeah, electronics continue to evolve. Things are getting more advanced, especially with AI. That's a whole nother world that is coming about that I'm trying to stay ahead of and a basic understanding of at this point, because just knowing electronics in general is really important for me and my team.
yes, for sure, for sure. Okay, one of my favorite questions for everybody that I talk to, especially when they're restorers, is a favorite story. I love hearing restorers stories, a favorite like client that you had or job that you were on, or maybe something amazing that you restored. I remember I'm sure you've had claims like this. There was a warehouse in Metro Detroit and they had restored I think it was a Red Wings player, had a flood in their condo. They had like some Versace couches that I honestly thought were the ugliest things I've ever seen, but we don't have to talk about that. But just these very interesting things that people restore when you're in the content side. So, can you share a favorite story?
Yeah, I've got a few actually.
All
So,
right.
and as far as, cool stuff that we restore, yeah, we see a lot of cool stuff come through the shop, on the electronics and textile side. I've done some vintage arcade machines, on textiles, some really custom, elaborate stuff made overseas, real cool drapes, stuff like that. But just this kind of will give you a little feel for like what our company can do and the value that we provide for the industry, right? So one of my favorite stories is, there was a fire at a major company, and they had a server room.
Mm.
Um, and the CEO came to us and said, "Hey, for every hour I'm down, I lose $250,000." So yeah, so we got there at 7 p.m., worked through the night. By 7 a.m., we had the entire server room restored, and they were up and operational by the start of business the next day. So I've never had a grown man cry and hug me, before on a job site, but he did. He was so grateful for our services and that we were able to, get him live and not have any downtime and, 12 hours on a late night call. So, that was really neat. I was really happy about that. So that really, kind of demonstrates what we can do as a company and what value we provide in the industry. Next couple stories I have are more on the fun side. We were working a college during Hurricane Harvey, and the halls were flooded like waist high, like holding water waist high. And I was walking through, full PPE, and had some fish swim underneath my feet in a college hallway.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, yeah. So that was interesting to navigate. So not only did they have to mitigate the water afterwards, they had to get out all the decomposing fish. So yeah, that was an interesting find on a job site, I'd say. So
Uh,
kind of silly one. We get all sorts of claims, different perils. Most people think peril, mold, water, fire. Well, this was actually a couple months ago. We got a claim, and the carrier said, "Hey, go out and check out this TV." It's like, wait, there's only TV, one TV is damaged on the entire claim. He's like, "Yeah, I don't really know what's going on. Can you go out there and figure it out?" Well, we get out there, and there's a big bust, a fracture in the middle of the TV. We'll start talking to the insured, and apparently he was having a party the night before, and they popped a bottle of champagne, and it
ooh,
bounced off one of his buddy's head off the roof and into the TV. And so, yeah, so the first time ever had a peril called champagne bottle, but I guess there is something for everything. His deductible must have been really low to where he could submit a claim for one TV, but nonetheless, yeah, okay, it looks like a cork mark to me on this TV. So that was a fun report to write.
I was gonna say that must be like a really big TV or a really nice TV or something like.
It's a nice one. It was one of the,
Okay,
75-inch OLEDs that, are
okay,
$5,000+. So yeah, it
okay.
definitely wasn't a Walmart $200 TV, that's for
And I
sure.
get it because most people would just be like, "Oh, yes, I'm going to get a new TV tomorrow."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that makes sense. I love the fish story. That makes me wonder, they say everything's bigger in Texas. I'd be worried, like, is that really a fish? Is it
Yeah, or is it a gator? Yeah, that's
a
exactly what
gator?
we're talking about. It's like, yeah, what just brushed our leg? Hopefully it's a fish and not a 12-foot gator. So luckily there were no gators in there at the end of it. So it was
Oh,
just, yeah.
my friend in South Carolina, they've had a lot of flooding from not Hannah, uh what just went through.
Barrel?
No, the other one. Anyway, I keep thinking Hannah, and that's not what it is. But anyway, Debbie, Debbie.
Okay.
And she said that snakes, it brings the snakes out in their part of the world.
Yeah.
Maybe it does in yours too. So they've had rattlesnakes around that have like come out of the, like,
They're
that's,
usually in hiding and they're like, well, I guess I gotta swim now. So
yes, I gotta swim now. Like, well, no, that's a pass for me. But okay. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for your time and all of your insight and knowledge and the great stories. Those were great stories. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap it up?
yeah, just really grateful to have me on. Thank you very much. And if anyone, we're not just a restoration company, we try to consult as well. So if anyone has any questions, we're always happy to help, even over a phone call or a video call. We want to be helpful in the industry. And if there's any questions regarding electronics, art, textiles, or documents, we're always here to help.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.